Dear family, dear precious teens, you know you are my source of inspiration. So I'd like to dedicate this talk to you and also to the teens in all of us. Yesterday I received a copy of Time magazine, and on the cover page it said, "Are you human? Are you human? If you are human, please raise your hands." Hi. Oh yeah, are you sure? So recently in May, a group of us monastics, 7 of us, we went on this teaching tour, and we had 4 retreats, and each retreat we had children's program, teens program, young adults program, and also a group for the rest of the adults. And one of the things that was striking to me was how children, especially tweens and teens, are affected by electronics. Everywhere we went to 4 different states. And every place I would encounter some children, some teens, who are like robots, literally. One particular boy in my teen group in Florida, he was very scrawny, very stiff. And in our group, when I asked questions, when he tried to respond, you couldn't hear his voice. He tried to speak, but nothing would come out. And I've seen young boys like that. And so I didn't single him out. I didn't try to make him answer because I know it would make him very anxious. But privately, I would talk to him, and he would just say, yes, no, or just nodded his head. So I would say, can you say the whole sentence? And I would say the sentence for him to repeat after me. And he was really struggling with that. And one time I hugged him, and I really felt like I was hugging a pole. He was like so stiff, just like a rod. Another teenager who was a little older in the group, 2 of them, they kept asking permission to go outside. Sister D, may we go out? I'm like, sure. And they come back, then they would leave, and then they would come back. And then the next day, one teen, he said to me, sorry, Sister D, we kept leaving the group. And I said, it's okay, Gang, but what were you doing out there? And he said, my friend is so anxious being with people that he kept having diarrhea. So how many of you have experienced that you feel like anxious being surrounded by people, that maybe your heart races, your breathing increases, your body tenses up, or you even have diarrhea? Be honest. Yeah. Thank you for being honest, girl. Thank you. So I see young people and adults here. In the 80s and the 90s, there was this commercial on television. Back then we didn't have iPhones and all. And this commercial was about drugs drug use. Some of you may remember. So they said, "This is your brain." Somebody held up an egg. And then they cracked the egg on a frying pan, and and they said, "This is your brain on drugs." You remember that commercial? Well, now it's the same but worse. This is your brain, and this is your brain on electronics, fried. And it's affecting children. At a very early age, children of 1 or 2 years, they already begin to use their iPhones, iPads. And the effects in children you start to see. But in tweens and teens, it becomes a lot more obvious. So I just want to share this because it is truly a social concern. So let's say there's this spectrum where this end, we are as humans. In this end, there are robots or AI. Now robots are becoming more and more human-like, right? We call them humanoid robots. They look like us, the skin looks like us, look like ours, the way they speak, the knowledge they have, they are super intelligent, humanoid robots. And at the same time, humans are become more and more like robots. We can call ourselves robotic humans. Now, what is the percentage of robot are you? Can somebody shout out? How much robot is there in you? What percentage? No, percentage. 100% human versus 20% robot or more. 0 robot? Yeah, you say that? What about you, Gong? 0? Don't know. What about you, Gong? How much robot in you? 10%? Okay. What about you, Gong? Huh? 0? Okay. Are you sure? And if you're sure, check again. Okay? So I asked this group of children, teens, young adults. And one young adult, she said 80% robot. Others, 50% robot, 20% robot, 10% robot. So if you think you are 0% robot, you are fooling yourselves. Okay? Unless you don't use electronics at all. So electronics are part of our daily existence now. They can be helpful, yes, but we have overused our electronic devices. And it is causing us to change the wiring of our neurons, of our brain. Think of the brain as these neural networks. And whatever we use a lot, it will tune in, will strengthen those particular neural networks. Let's say this is the brain. Let's say we use these particular areas, in the brain when we are online using these electronic devices. So these neural networks become very strong. But the rest of our brain, when it is neglected, is not used much, like our skills for communication, for playing sports, for playing music, play different games that involve, our whole body. Like earlier today, I met a young woman with a beautiful child, and she was sitting on a stroller, and the mother said she's been playing with this cup with a few leaves in the cup for the last hour and a half. And I said, that is great. You can spend an hour and a half playing with a cup with leaves. And I said to her, she can be happy with that. Please don't give her an iPhone. Right? Because when you play with the leaves and the cup, you use your visual system, your auditory system, right? You may smell it, you may even put it in your mouth and taste it. You touch, you hear the crunches, you experience all sensations in your body. You get interested in it. But with electronics, it's different. It's just a screen. Just a screen. All of your sense organs are not really used in a real interactive way. So certain parts of your brain, the neural networks, are incredibly developed. But the rest of the brain, those neural networks that are not used, that have been established in, during your childhood, as a child, as an infant, as a toddler, a child, a twin, all those neural networks slowly, they get trimmed off. Okay? So the brain is in constant process of pruning, of tuning and pruning. Tuning, strengthening the networks that you use a lot, and pruning, cutting out the things that you do not use. Now, here, as robotic humans, even if you become 90% robots, and there's only 10% or 1% human left in you, just 1% human left in you, you still suffer. Actually, you suffer greatly, because that 1% human left in you, that humanness in you, still has a deep desire to love, to be loved, to be free. Does it make sense? That 1% human left in you still generates feelings, still has consciousness, yeah? But that unique features of human beings, such as having feelings, having compassion, the need to be free, to be loved, to love, as we become more and more robotic humans, we don't face those needs. Our natural ways of being, you see, we don't confront, we don't take care of our feelings, which are generated moment to moment, continuously. we don't take care of their needs. To love, to be loved, to be free, to be enlightened. We keep, being glued to all the information and data bombarded at us. They call it data storm. That's what we are exposed to in our daily life. Data storms. Yes, robots can handle all of that. That is why they are super intelligent. They are more intelligent than us because all you need to do is to, upload all human knowledge into a robot, an AI. And it can handle it. All it needs is to be recharged here and there, right? But for us as human beings with this flesh and bones, with the thoughts and feelings we have, we cannot handle that kind of bombardment of data, day in, day out, all that information. So that is why we suffer from anxiety disorders. We suffer, young children, teens, nowadays suffer deeply from anxiety disorders, from depression. Children who are born without autism are becoming more and more autistic-like, which means that we lose slowly our communication skills. We feel awkward with our own parents and siblings. We rather interact online than in person. Do you see that part in yourself? You're more comfortable online. Yeah, it takes time to adjust, to be with others. So see that in yourself. It happens. Ask yourself this question. Am I human? Right now, in this moment, any moment you can just check in. Very simple question. Am I a human right now? Or am I a robot? And what is the percentage of human am I? And what is the percentage of robot am I? It can bring you great insight. And it can help you to choose more wisely. Okay? Let us listen to one sound of the bell and just check in. Check in with our breath, our body, and check in how much human are we right now and how much robot are we right now in this moment. When I was in my first year in medical school, one of my professors, she was an oncologist, and she was teaching this ethics class to us first year. And she said when she was in medical school, one of her professors received a Nobel Prize in medicine. And in his speech, he said, over the last 50 years, I have become a great scientist, but I have not become a better human being. And his statement really made a deep impression on her. And that story also made a big impression on me as a first-year medical student. And it also helped me to make certain choices in my career and now in my monastic life. So the Buddha taught there are 4 different kinds of people, 4 different kinds of human beings, okay? The first kind of human beings are those who do not care about their own well-being or the well-being of others. They just don't care. Do you think it's true there are those people who do not care about their own well-being or the well-being of others? You think it's true? Yeah? Well, maybe you think of psychopaths or sociopaths. Those are extreme examples, right? But actually, if we look deeply, there are also those of us who have suffered so much, who've been hurt, abused, abandoned, neglected so badly that we hardened inside in order not to feel anymore, not to care anymore. You know, while I was in medical school, I volunteered at San Francisco Youth Guidance Center, YGC, and I worked with young teenagers who weren't, old enough to go to state penitentiary prisons. So they were at this youth guidance center. And one said, if I get AIDS, I'm going to go out and spread it to everybody. I was shocked to hear that at first, but then as I worked with them, I understood more. They had been hurt so much that they just wanted to revenge, to lash out, that's all. But when I got to know them, they were sensitive souls, so thoughtful, so loving. They needed so much love and care and positive attention, you see? So those of us who do not care about our own well-being or the well-being of others is usually because of our upbringing has not been very positive. It happens. Now, interestingly, sometimes when we are lost, when we are swept away by our habits or addictions, let's say electronic addictions, and we get totally pulled into it, then actually we can become the first kind of people. We really don't care about our own well-being or the well-being of others. Does it make sense? I know so many young people who can be on their electronic devices 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. They will stay up until 3 in the morning while their parents are sleeping. Or adults who are professionals, who are addicted, who are addicted to electronics, that they lose their job because they keep playing games or, doing whatever they do online, right? Watching pornography, that's a real addiction in young people and adults. So when we become addicted to something, it just means that a behavior, when it is repeated over time, it becomes a habit, right? Because of these neural networks now are so rehearsed, so strong, so entrenched in our brain. That's just a clue. Something, a sight, a sound, a smell, a taste, a touch, a thought, you immediately go towards it. You feel anxious not to be able to check your phone. You feel your heart rate increases. Your body tenses up. Your mind cannot focus on what is in front of you because you keep thinking, when am I going to get to look at my phone? When do I get to check this and that? When do I get to look at those videos? It has become an addiction. And when we are trapped in an addiction, it really doesn't matter what else is going on. We just want, when in the beginning, when we use drugs or alcohol or watch a video or something, it may make us feel better, right? So for example, your mood is somewhere, let's say here. You're like blah, like 50%. You feel flat. So you want to do something exciting to get yourself up to, let's say, 70%. Right? But after a while, when it comes to addiction, you watch the same amount of, the video for the same amount of time, or you do drugs, or you watch pornography or whatever, for the same amount of time, but the pleasure, the excitement is no longer 70%. It gets to like 60%, and then, 55%. And when the addiction is really there, you actually, without it, you go down to 30% or 40%. And you go online, not to feel 70%, but just to get to 50%, your baseline, before you get addicted to something. Does it make sense? That's addiction. Now, when you do it, it's not because it makes you feel good anymore. You do it so that you don't feel so terrible. So we are trapped in that cycle. And the more we get into a habit and addiction, the stronger it becomes in our brain. Okay? Let us breathe and just come back to this wonderful moment when we are here. We don't have to go anywhere, don't have to do anything, don't have to be anything. This moment, we can actually be at peace and be free. Free from all graspings and pullings, all those addictions that we face in our daily life. So ask ourselves question often, am I a human right now, or am I a robot? What kind of person am I this moment? Do I care about my well-being? The well-being of my siblings, of my parents, of society? A very simple question, okay? Am I doing this and it makes me feel terrible? And it causes the concerns in my family and society, and yet I keep plunging in. Then just be honest. I am being the first kind of person right now, not really taking care of my well-being or the well-being of my family and society. Honesty is very important. We can fool anybody else, but let us learn not to fool ourselves. Because if we fool ourselves, we have no way out. We don't even have the beginning point. The second kind of person, people, the Buddha taught, are those who care about the well-being of others, but not their own well-being. Who see yourself in this situation? Raise your hands. Yeah. Okay, more of us we see. Exactly. As parents, many times we take care of our children, of the family, right? But we neglect our own health, our own needs, right? As healthcare professionals, we are worst at that. I remember there were times when I drove to the hospital, but I just sat in the car and cried because I felt so overwhelmed by my own human emotions. And I really didn't want to see my patients because I know I would just get more their fear, of their sadness, of their worries. So I just sat in the car for a long time. And when I got enough courage to leave the car, I just went to the doctor's office to check on their lab results, because that was more manageable than seeing them in person. Did I love my patients? Very much yet. Yes, I love my patients very much, but I didn't know how to take care of my own human emotions. So many of us, caregivers, we care for others, and yet we neglect our own needs. In the name of love, in the name of compassion, in the name of service, we abandon ourselves. But our work, our service becomes short-lived, because our human emotions will spill all over what we do, right? Parents can become very frustrated and resentful towards our children because they are ungrateful. Or when they leave home, we feel like, now what do I do with my life, for example? And I also felt resentful towards my patients because they kept coming back day in, day out with the same problem. And I felt like I was wasting my youth, my life to take care of them. But somewhere along the line, I realized, as educated, as privileged as I was, I didn't know how to take care of myself. Then how could I expect others to take care of themselves? Some of them were homeless, some of them were, addicted to drugs. They had many family social problems, you see. So we learn that the second kind of people, we mean well, but in the end, we get hurt and we end up hurting others. Parents can also be very angry and abusive. Social workers, doctors can be very abusive towards our patients, our clients, out of that frustration, that disillusionment. Yeah? The victim can also become the perpetrator. I have this bean right here. Maybe you've seen this sign before, right? What is it, Kang? It's a yin-yang sign, right? Well, there's also a bean, a real bean. You can order online, or you can stay after this talk and then I'll offer you one. So half of it is white and half of it is black. And on the white, there's the black dot. And on the black half, there's a white dot. This is, I call, an Interbeing. And it illustrates a very deep teaching taught by the Buddha, which is interbeing. Okay? This is in that, that is in this. This is because that is. This is not because that is not. Have you heard of epigenetic changes? Okay. They did some studies on mice. They exposed first generation mice to the smell of cherry blossoms, I think. And every time the mice smell cherry blossoms, they also administered an electric shock. And so, you know how they react and they try to run away. Now, interestingly, the second generation of mice who were never exposed to electric shock, and yet every time they smell cherry blossoms, they started to go through a stress response and they try to run away. the third generation of mice behave similarly, even though they were never shocked electrically. Not until the fourth or the fifth generation of mice that they do not have a stress response towards the fragrance of cherry blossom. And that's what they call as epigenetic change. Change or changes, okay? So your genes, they look the same, and yet the expressions of your genes, how they produce, they make enzymes, proteins, how they behave, they turn on, they get turned on or turned off, they are changed. Epigenetic changes, okay? So in Vietnamese, we have a saying, cha ăn mặn, con khát nước. The father eats salty food, and his children get thirsty. Now, this is something, it's like a proverb, but it's very deep wisdom. You see that? The father eats salty food, the children get thirsty. You see the effects of epigenetic changes. Yeah? So it's passed on. I have a real example. My own uncle, who lived a life of, let's say he didn't take care of himself, and he didn't take care of the well-being of others very much either. He ran away from home at the age of 13, lived on the street, got into gang, joined the army. This was during the Vietnam War. So, he was a drinker, a womanizer, etc., etc. So by the time he was in his 50s, he died from TB, from severe diabetes, and, everything in his body, his bladder, he lost control, right? That's my uncle, who's my mother's younger brother. Now his son, who looks so much like him, who's lived such a wholesome life. I love him so much. He never drank, he never smoked, he never even had a girlfriend. He just loved his mother, he worked and he came home and helped her around. And now at the age of 35, he's been diagnosed with kidney cancer. They had to remove one kidney. And now they want to remove his bladder as well. And it just breaks my heart. Just breaks my heart. My cousin. But I really feel his father's life had an influence on his own life. So what we want to do, actually, the Buddha taught about the third kind of people, are those who care about the well-being, our own well-being, but not others. The Buddha said the third kind of people, that's better than the first two kinds. And you think, that doesn't sound very Buddhist, right? We should be like martyrs, right? We should sacrifice our lives for others. But I already explained to you the shortcoming of being the first kind of people or the second kind of people, right? Now, the third kind of people who take care of their well-being, this is not saying about being a diva, right? Me. No, this is not. My brother, he shared with me just a few days ago. He said, last week I talked to my daughter, who's my niece, my brother's daughter, and he said to her, Sune, I think you are being a bit selfish. You're being quite self-centered and self-focused. And I'm not happy with that. And I see this in young people. When I go on this Viet Wake Up tour, mainly we aim, towards Vietnamese youth who were born or raised in America. What we see is that their parents' generation were poor, or they had to work so hard. They suffer from the Vietnam War and after. So when they got to this country, what the parents want to do is to give their children everything. So parents would work day and night, would have 2 jobs, 3 jobs. They would come home at 10 o'clock. My sister-in-law still does that. She'll come home at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night from work. And when my niece was a baby, she would wake her up so that she could play with Sune, with her baby. Because all day long she didn't have time with her daughter, you see. So whatever that my niece wanted, my brother and my sister-in-law would give it to her. And it's our love, but somewhere there, deep inside, is also out of guilt. We want to make up for the lost time. So we give all the material things. But do you really think all the material things that you get can make up for the attention and love that your parents can give you? No, right? No. It cannot ever make up. Parents, please be aware of this. And teens, most of you will also become parents. Be aware of this. Material wealth, luxury cannot make up for the love that you need, that you want to offer. But having so much material comforts, when things become so abundant, then we have nothing to work towards, to work for. You know what I mean? When I was a child, I would daydream about having a new outfit. I actually had a dream when I picked up a $100 bill on the street, which I had never seen a $100 bill in real life in Vietnam. But I woke up, I was happy for half of a day because that feeling carried over from my dream. I was happy. And then somewhere in the day, I realized I didn't have a $100 bill in my pocket. And I was all disappointed. But now, my niece, if I give her $100, she'll just say, oh, thanks. That's it. Whatever I could give her, a t-shirt I brought back from the tour, whatever I could, the chocolate I got from friends, she'd say, thanks. Sometimes she doesn't even try it on or try the food. It's like she gets everything, so nothing really means much. I feel I cannot give her anything that would just surprise her, So what I do is that I come and I play volleyball with her. I hang around to give her my attention. And sometimes she just wants me to go home so she can play games, right? And it used to make me very sad. But thankfully now she likes to play volleyball, so at least I have something to interact with her. So what happens is that my brother said to Sune, you are being selfish, self-focused, and self-centered. I think it's the case for many children, many young people nowadays, because we have all the material needs. So we don't think much of anything else, like of the well-being of our parents, of society, and we are not really happy with what we have anyway, because it's always there, so we don't really cherish it, you see? So Sune got very upset, and she said to her father, how dare you to call me the 3S? But later she also came to my brother Sunny and said, Daddy, I'm sorry. Okay. So not to be a diva, to be selfish, self-absorbed, self-centered, always being sucked in by all our habits and our addiction and forgetting everything. We want to be, more aware of our well-being, asking ourselves genuine, honest questions. Am I taking good care of myself for this moment, but also for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years in the future? What am I passing on to the future generation? Being aware of the epigenetic changes that I'm making in my brain, in my body. Every moment when I do something and I repeat that action, that behavior, I am transmitting constantly to my environment now and for years to come. So in Vietnamese, I learned this one, and I think this is a very good way to be the third kind of people, to be a soulmate. Okay? When you think of a soulmate, what do you think of, Kang? A soulmate. Mm-hmm. Oh, you think yourself, you know what? He's come to many retreats. You got it down. Anybody else, when you think of soulmate, Kang, you've also come to retreats. I want to ask somebody who's brand new. Kang, what a soulmate to you? Somebody you are drawn to, okay? Anything else? The young ladies over there, Kang, you. What's a soulmate to you? What are you looking for? A partner, okay. A partner who loves you unconditionally, who can always be there for you, right? Through the thick and the thin. Well, breathe with the sound of the bell. In Vietnamese, soulmate is tri kỷ. These are the Chinese characters for soulmate. Tri means to remember, to know, to take care of, to master. Tri kỷ, literally, it means oneself. So a soulmate is not somebody else who loves you, takes care of you, who's there always for you. A soulmate is you who learn to remember yourself, learn to remember your body. I've been sitting at this computer for the last 3 hours, 5 hours. I've not even gone to the restroom. I've been suppressing that urge to use the restroom. It is 2 a.m. and I'm not sleeping yet. And you know, in Chinese medicine, we learn that around 10 o'clock, the internal organs start to slow down to do self-repair, self-replenish. Okay, the liver, the kidneys, the spleen, the stomach, the intestines, heart, lungs. So if like at 2 we are still working, 12 we're still exposing ourselves to data storm. We're not allowing our internal organs to slow down and to do self-repair or self-replenish, right? We're not being our own soulmate who remember our own body, who get to know our own body, our thoughts and feelings, what trigger depression, what trigger anxiety, how to alleviate our anxiety, our depression, our anger, our insecurity. That's a soulmate. You remember, you get to know, you take care of, and you learn to master your habits and addictions. You see, that's a soulmate, a true soulmate. So this third kind of people, when we learn to be our own soulmates, learn to be a soulmate to our breath. That's why we keep stressing about mindful breathing. Learn to know your breath. Why? Because your breath manifests your emotions, your thoughts and feelings, right? When you are angry, how do you breathe? When you are sad, how do you breathe? When you are anxious, what is your breathing pattern? You see, they're all different. They reflect your mind. You may not know or be aware of your mind because it's quite abstract and elusive and constantly changing, right? And yet, if you get to know your breath, your breathing pattern, you will know your mind. Even your steps, when you walk, if you're in a hurry, your steps are different. The sounds of your step are different. The way you hold your body is different. Everything about you is different. But when you're at ease, you have leisure, your gait, your steps will be different. You see? So really, everything about your body, your heart rate, your respiratory rate, your muscles, your body posture, everything, your facial expression, everything about you reflects your mind. So that is why we practice with our body, so that we take care of ourselves, the third kind of people. Now, as human beings, we are social animals. We need to interact with others. Our brain is wired not only internally, but our brain is also wired to the physical surrounding. It's also wired to the people and the environment. You see, it constantly needs feedback. So when we self-isolate, when we are in the room for 5 hours, 10 hours, day after day, we deprive ourselves of human interaction, of feedback. Animals communicate with each other through chemicals, like pheromones, for example. Or, visual, when they look like an ape, will look at another ape and see the way it's, behaving. The ape will know what to expect and how to behave. As human beings, we do all that. We also even do through touch, but through words. That's very particular for humans, of course, for songbirds as well. But humans, we use words. And that helps us to self-regulate as well. You've heard the word self-regulation? Yeah? To bring ourselves to equilibrium. Yeah? To a state of balance, homeostasis. The theme of our retreat is stable heart, clear mind. Well, we in the West, we make a distinction between body and mind, between heart versus mind. But in Chinese character, this character you might have seen before, Tam. It means heart, but it also means mind. Okay? They are the same. Clear heart, stable heart, clear mind, stable and clear mind. Okay? The heart, the anatomical heart is never stable. It has the heart rate variation. The moment I move a foot like this, my heart rate increases. When I run, it increases further. And then when I stop, it decreases. You see? So the heart rate changes to meet the demands of the body, of the action. But as human beings, in spite of all the constant changes in our whole body, we can also develop some kind of equanimity in our mind, that there is stability despite the ups and downs, the constant changes in the internal and external environment. Stable heart, stable mind, or stable mind and heart, it just means that we don't go from one extreme to the other. You are not saying anything. The next moment you just have an outburst of temper tantrum, or you scream, or you cry uncontrollably. That is when we become so robotic that all those human feelings and emotions are suppressed. And then when there's some triggering factor, it's just this outburst we call anxiety, you know. And anxiety, a panic attack or anxiety outburst, you know, or depression. So we learn to self-regulate every moment. Moment to moment, we learn to come back to the breath. It's a great place to anchor ourselves. In Chinese character for breath, up here, tự, it means from itself. Down here is tâm, which means heart, mind. This whole thing means the breath. The breath is from the mind, the heart. The breath is the heart, the mind itself. Such wisdom in the language, right? And as I was saying about when you are angry versus sad versus at ease, your breathing pattern will change. When we are dying, we also have a different breathing pattern, sharing Stokes respiration. And a doctor, a nurse listening to your breathing pattern can tell how much time you have left. See? So if you can bring one thing away with you to go home with, mindful breathing can be your soulmate. You can be a soulmate to your breathing. Learn, just check in. And when you see that your breathing pattern, you know, is very short, rapid, uncomfortable, you know your body is going through stress. When you're watching a movie, you're playing a game, you're talking on a phone, you look at social media, and you see there's this discomfort in your entire body. Check in, and then leave everything down. Turn off the phone, turn off the your computer. Just breathe for a while, or lie down and calm down. That is a way to self-regulate. You see? Or you are having a temper tantrum or an anger outburst, go for walking meditation. Go for walking meditation. Just calm down, put all your energy down on your feet, and just really touch the ground. Bring this storm down to your feet, to the earth. Let that be absorbed. That is being a soulmate to ourselves. And a soulmate to oneself, naturally, you become a soulmate to others. Okay? I was sharing earlier, as humans, we use words to self-regulate, and not to affect others. I see this also. You know, mothers or fathers, they would hold their babies, and they would constantly talk to the baby, right? Oh, honey, you're so sweet. And kiss the face. I watched this man holding his baby on the airplane, and I was amazed. And he kissed the neck, the chest, and he's like talking, and the baby, you know. But all that is going inside is, you know, his actions, his affection, his speech are wiring the brain of the child, creating this feeling of love and safety in the child. If we are lucky, which I expect most of us here are very fortunate, we were loved and cared for in our infancy, in our childhood like that, Now, but I see this phenomenon as tweens and then teenagers and young adults. We isolate ourselves. I see many teens don't even look at our parents. Or our parents say something, okay, whatever. Can I go now? Does it happen to you sometimes? Yeah? Words. If we say, precious love, how are you? If a mother say that or a father say that to you, or you say, how's your day, mom? It helps to calm down the nervous system of your own and the other person. If you say something kind, something genuine, something positive, you are taking care of yourself and the other person. You see, you are being the fourth kind of person in a very simple and practical way. But when you say, whatever, leave me alone, you are causing stress in your own body. Can you feel it? Even when I say it, can you feel you kind of startle? A burst of adrenaline is released into your bloodstream. That kind of, an emotion hormone, the half-life is only 69 seconds. After 69 seconds, that burst of hormone has no effect on your heart rate, your respiratory rate, your body anymore. And yet, how can you be so bitter or angry or depressed for days or for years? It's because the way of thinking, the way we think so negatively, the way we speak so negatively, so harshly, the way we behave, we stomp the ground, we swing our body, we push things, we shove things, all those things trigger more release of stress hormones. And that is why we're constantly on this defensive posture. You're like ready to fight. You're ready to fight. You're ready to run. You're ready to freeze. Whatever coping mechanism that you often resort to, depending on your personality, your upcoming upbringing, your genetic inheritance. But you see yourself, ask yourself, how do I usually cope? But all those different strategies become self-destructive if we keep doing that. If we keep fighting with ourselves and whoever in front of us, or if we keep running away, before we fail, we already run away. You see, or we are frozen deep within, and we don't really feel anything, and we numb and escape further with our electronic devices. You see? So, a simple thing we can do, like in our monastery every day when we see each other, we smile. We greet each other, hello. Or we bow, simply bow to each other. But that moment is so peaceful, so self-regulating. That is being so kind to yourself and to each other. So young people, parents, even if you are not feeling so well, physically, emotionally, especially when you don't feel so well, physically or emotionally, just take a moment to just calm down with your mindful breathing, with your mindful walking. Use loving speech towards yourself. I know I'm tired. I'm sorry I exhausted myself. Thank you for always trying. I love you so. I've learned to tell myself, I love you, many times a day. I didn't know my father. My mother disappeared when I was only 12. My grandmother took good care of my brother and me, but she couldn't really show physical affection or verbal affection. She was kind and present for us, and she took care of us. And thanks to her, I am who I am today. But in the practice, I've also learned to use loving speech towards myself, to my body. Instead of saying, oh, you're too fat, too short, too thin, whatever, just love yourself as you are. This body is so loyal, is so enduring, is so faithful to you. However you neglect or abuse your body tries to heal itself, to get up day after day. If you can just practice loving speech towards yourself, you bring so much stability, so much clarity to your mind, to your life. Let us listen to one sound of the bell. So on this teaching tour in May that a group of us went to, in one Dharma sharing group with the teenagers, I asked, I told the teenagers a teaching by the Buddha. The Buddha said, of all the offerings you can make to the Buddha, to the monks and nuns, you can build stupa, you can offer, jewelries, whatever. The Buddha went through all the different kinds of offering. You gain merit, but less so if you practice the 5 mindfulness trainings, which you will learn. And then, in the end, the Buddha said, of all the merits you can gain, if you just practice impermanence, you remember impermanence, that will give you the greatest merit. Okay? It's like merit, it's like something good from good conduct, and you can use that to be prosperous in your life or to be reborn in heaven or in the Pure Land or something, right? So in this group of Dharma sharing, I asked the teens, after telling them this story, now how would you behave differently if you knew that your life was limited and impermanent? How would you behave differently? What would you do differently, Kang, if you know your life is limited and impermanent? Anything? Anything you would do differently? Huh? Yes. You're not sure? What about Kang next to you? Yeah, that's you, Brown. Yes. Try to make the most of it. Wonderful. So the teens in my group share that. One said, I wouldn't spend as many hours on my electronic devices. And many of them said, I would spend more time with my parents. I would spend more time in person with my friends. So one said this: I would not turn conflicts, temporary arguments and conflicts into something permanent, because I would value the relationships more. Isn't that deep? That's very deep. And then we went a whole round, and then on the second round I asked, now, how would you behave differently if you knew your parents' lives were limited and impermanent? Indeed, our life is short and impermanent. And our parents' lives, the lives of our loved ones, are indeed short, limited, and impermanent. And yet we live our daily life as if we live forever, and that they will live forever. So we take for granted our own life and each other's life. So when you come to a spiritual life, you learn to be aware of impermanence and long live to impermanence, because you know you're aware of impermanence. You change certain ways of thinking, behaving, and speaking. You want to expose yourself to more, to different situations, different groups of people, different experiences. Too often nowadays that we are so, comfortable in our own little room, our own little group, that we're not so much aware of others, their struggles and their suffering, and that only harbors prejudices and discrimination, hatred, and biases. But if we open our hearts and mind, we allow ourselves to be exposed to different kinds of people, different kinds of situations, we will learn to understand ourselves and others more, so we would be more inclusive. We would be kinder, more embracing. That's the fourth kind of people. Okay? The last thing I would like to leave you with, as you grow up, you think, oh, what kind of a career I want, what kind of partner I want, what kind of a success do I want? But in the end, those things will not matter very much. Just like that scientist, right, who received the Nobel Prize in medicine. Over the last 50 years, I have become a great scientist, but I've not become a better human being. Come back to these different four kinds of people. Ask yourself, what are you manifesting as a person right now? Which kind? Are you a human or are you a robot? Are you becoming more human? I think that's the only way. That's the only antidote to our social ills, to this AI power. Become more human, my dear, not more robot. You will never be able to compete with robot, but you can always be a better human being. And ask yourself, at the end of the day, at the end of our life, what do I want to be remembered as? I practice this in my daily life. When I go to sleep, when I lie down, I'm aware that my life is impermanent. I may not wake up in the morning. And I live in such a way that if I were to die tonight, I can be at peace with myself. one day I sat down, I wrote this. When I die, I would like to be remembered as someone who has the courage to live and to love. I would like to be remembered as someone who is a soulmate to myself and to many others. I would like to be remembered as someone who has lived beautifully and who has died beautifully, smiling until my last breath. I would feel utterly content, not because of my social status or any kind of success, but just that. But it's a daily practice, daily check-in. If you want to be a soulmate to yourself, do that moment to moment, day by day. It doesn't just happen naturally. And if we cannot be a soulmate to ourselves, trust me, you'll never be able to find a soulmate outside of you. Even if somebody loves you so much, comes along, you will walk away from that person. You will walk over that person because you don't believe there's such thing as love. See? So my dear ones, coming back to it, just ask, am I human? Am I a human right now? Okay? Choose to be what kind of person and practice that. Okay? You have the capacity to transform and to heal. However young you are right now, some of you 13 years old, 14, 15, but you have the agency. Okay? Every time you are on electronics, ask yourself, am I a human or am I a robot right now? Am I being a soulmate to myself? Can I just turn it off, put it down, leave it outside of my bedroom? Can I just go outside, play some sports, do some workout, learn an instrument, help my mom, help my dad? Many of your parents are now shorter than you, smaller than you. As you grow, help them. Don't just leave them. Taking care of you, take care of them with your thoughts, your loving speech, and your kind gestures, actions. Okay? Bless you, my dear ones. Let us enjoy 3 sounds of the bell together.